You know what Sony had? The Holy Trinity. Leo, Brad, and Marco. Who do you have?
This week on Boy Party, we're lighting the fuse as Shane and I discuss the biggest new release of the year, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Ethan. Our podcasts are the sum of our episodes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Boy Party, the podcast about movies where two major stars share the screen. This summary is not relevant because we're doing a special episode this week. We're going off format. We're discussing our most anticipated blockbuster of the summer. We've been doing a couple of little teaser episodes, talking about the trailers and whatnot to get you excited. And finally, it is here. We have seen it. Christopher McQuarrie's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I am joined this week, as always, by my fellow IMF agent. We've been taken off grid. We've been disavowed by our government. And we have only a few hours to save the world from total annihilation. Shane is here.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Anytime.
We are here to unpack Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We are going to have to come at this from a couple of different angles, and we're going to try not to outstay our usual episode length. Dense, deep, long, complicated movie to talk about.
Absolutely.
We'll work through it through with the plot in chronological order, I think. But first, before we start spoiling the film, we do a couple of quick notes for our people who haven't seen the movie yet. First of all, I wanted to ask you what you think now that you've seen it of the title and of the sort of like marketing around it. This is something we talk about a lot on this show. So like, what do you think the name, the lack of the Dead Reckoning Part 2 title, and the way it's been sold to audiences, is it representative of the film? Were they right to do what they did? What do you think?
I think the name is fine. Completely fine. Has a reasonable level of continuity there with the last one.
Yeah.
And kind of projects that it is a bit of a sequel. I'm glad they didn't go with Dead Reckoning Part 2.
I'm very glad they didn't, yeah.
As for the rest of the marketing, again...
It's doing this is Ethan's big goodbye kind of thing on the one hand, with this black and white shot of Cruise with these scars on his face.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, they're using this very bright, vivid image of the little yellow plane against a green background. And you're like, these are two very contradictory vibes they're selling. One is the po-faced, serious finality shtick, and the other is zoomy little plane goes fast. And I feel like the movie is far too much on the side of the black and white Cruise staring into the distance. That is the atmosphere of this film for 75% of its running time. And I had an issue with that. I think that I would rather the movie be along the lines of the fun little plane chase for its entire running time.
Do you think there's an over-reliance on Tom Cruise as the face of the marketing of this? Like, obviously he is the biggest.
So they've done the floating heads poster for the last 3 movies.
Yeah.
And they had faces like Rebecca Ferguson, Simon Pegg, Vanessa Kirby, Alec Baldwin in the mix there to sell those movies, and Jeremy Renner, of course. And I think this movie maybe lacks those faces. I think that the lack of Rebecca Ferguson suddenly takes the ensemble down a peg in terms of star wattage, where like you're almost just better off to use Cruise as the selling point and the central stunt.
No, I'm not saying they were wrong to
because
do it,
I
but
think
they kind of got themselves into a corner where they had to do it
because there's too many characters in this movie. And as we were saying, if you were to include the ensemble on a floating heads poster, I don't know where you would stop, because you would have to include Atwell, you'd have to include Pegg, you'd have to include Angela Bassett, you'd have to include Pom Klementieff, and then you'd probably I either stop there or you add 10 more faces.
Like, my understanding was that it was going to be pretty clear Haley Atwell was going to be the second lead of this.
But after watching the film, I don't think that's how it feels at all.
No.
And we'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, in terms of the marketing, I think I'm wondering what the cinema score is going to be. I wonder if casual viewers, Cruise fans, people who aren't necessarily Ethan Hunt Mission Impossible heads.
Yeah.
I can easily see this getting like a B or B minus cinema score.
There are some completely crucial hypocrisies and contradictions throughout this, and the way it's that the angle they decided to go with, that it is going to like probably be the downfall of it. It's probably not going to make sufficient money back to be a mega hit.
No, I think that there's going to be audience disinterest from the non-passionate fans from minute one.
Yeah.
And that it's going to take a long time to win them back over. And the question is the incredibly satisfying and high energy finale going to do enough to keep people happy? I'm quickly going to run through the cinema scores of the franchise so far because I'm interested in cinema score. We don't talk about cinema score on the show very often. We should, because I'm really interested in it. It's kind of stupid, but it's interesting. If anyone doesn't know, this is the score based on surveying people as they leave the cinema opening day. So you're basically doing a test of, did audiences who went out to see this film feel like they got what they paid for? Did they get sold the movie that they wanted, and did it end up satisfying them? So generally, the closer a film is to what its marketing promised, the higher the cinema score will be. It doesn't really matter if the movie is objectively shit or whatnot.
So
are
you familiar with what the question is that is asked directly to the
graded
audience?
Graded A to F.
Oh, it is a grade.
Grade the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think maybe they say something along the lines of based on your expectations. I don't know if they do.
Yeah.
But like Minecraft, a film which maybe critics didn't love or whatever, would always get a high cinema score, because if you were going to see the Minecraft movie based on the marketing as an audience member, you're going to be happy, right? So anyway, Mission Impossible 1 gets a B+, Mission Impossible 2 gets a B, Mission Impossible 3 gets an A-, Ghost Pro and Rogue Nation both get A- as well, and then Fallout gets an A, and Dead Reckoning gets an A.
Yeah.
A+ is tough to get. Stuff like Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, that makes people like go goo with
Just complete
fan bait, like, you know, fan service. They get A+. And A, very healthy. I can easily see this movie getting a B. I just don't think that there's enough of it is going to keep casual viewers happy. Anyway, we will go through it in chronological order, hit the main moments and the beats, and talk about the cast and the characters. So, folks, your spoiler warning starts right now.
We are talking about everything.
Spoiler warning. Everything. Ethan, we're spoiling the movie. So, Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning begins where Dead Reckoning Part 1 ended, where basically Ethan floats away on his little thingy from the train in Austria, and the Entity and Gabriel have escaped capture, but Ethan does have the cruciform key.
Yeah.
So there is the opportunity for him to basically get to the festival submarine and attack the Entity.
No, I think there's a pretty clear setup there.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Good
the
transition.
movie has a great opportunity to just take that and jump off with it.
I think so.
And the movie instead is like, the first section of the film is going to be an explainer YouTube video.
Yes.
And we start with the Entity showing us a bunch of stuff, and we get to see lots and lots of clips from the other movies.
The first we see of Cruise, he's watching a video sent to him by President Angela Bassett.
President Angela Bassett is like, Ethan, as you know, the Entity has destroyed the world with misinformation. Everyone is turning on each other. There are riots and martial law everywhere. We don't see a lot of this martial law in the movie. No. There's martial law everywhere.
No, I like this bit. I thought this was
fun,
going to be, but because I thought it was setting up a real
political
kind of message.
I agree, which doesn't really continue.
Come through. Yeah.
Basically, then Ethan and Grace, played by Haley Atwell, who was great in the last movie, and I think her character in this movie is just absolutely diluted to the point of it could have been any character.
Yeah.
It's just Haley Atwell present on screen. There is no character. The two of them go to a thing at the U.S. Embassy where Shea Wiggum is kind of knocking about looking for Ethan, and Gabriel shows up, and Gabriel kidnaps them.
I think they go looking for Gabriel.
And Gabriel basically
around and kidnaps
Gabriel kidnaps them and locks them in a room, chained up, and basically says to Ethan, I am going to kill Grace in front of you unless you give me
the key.
The key, and there's also a thing that Ving Rhames Luther has built.
I don't think he's aware of that yet.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
But there's a thing that Luther has built, which is called the poison pill.
Yeah.
This is all very complicated.
It's a USB you plug into the Entity.
It's a USB you plug into the Entity and kills it. Yeah, let's pretend it's that simple.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we'll get to the specifics later on.
Cruz basically anyway fucking fakes his own death with a fake cyanide capsule, then attacks Gabriel, and they escape.
Yeah, because Gabriel doesn't want him to die, so Tom looks like he's dying.
Yeah.
So they get him out of his handcuffs and give him the defibrillator.
And then he attacks them and fights them. Yeah. And then the credits hit about 20-something and 23 minutes
24, I think.
Very unsatisfying cut to credits. That's the first warning sign in the movie, is that the credits are bad and the cut to credits feels very unsatisfying. I mean, the last couple movies, you've had the cruise.
Fallout is
you've got the last three.
Yeah.
Rogue Nation, it's him flying out the back of the plane after he's clung onto the side of it.
Yeah.
In the opening scene, he goes flying out the back with his parachute, cuts to credits.
Yeah.
Fallout is the Wolf Blitzer reveal. What's done is done when I say it's done.
Yeah.
And then Dead Reckoning Part 1 is him putting on the Henry Zerny mask to escape the briefing room after his meeting.
Fantastic.
All fantastic.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's basically just this kind of glib line of Haley Atwell going, "You did an amazing job, Ethan." And he goes, "You weren't so bad yourself." And then goes, "Dee-lee-lee." It's not very good.
Yeah.
So
There's a weird kind of slapstick, him beating someone up off screen.
Yeah.
Showing Haley Atwell. I don't know. It's a bit all over the place. They're trying to shoehorn this kind of like weird rom-com-y type thing between the two of them. They do it in the Rome scene.
Yes, but it works in Dead Reckoning because Dead Reckoning gives the room to breathe and gives them time and room to develop some chemistry.
Yeah, because they kind of have this banter where like she's like, "Stop, he's following me," and all the Italian guys stop him. And
it's really good. Like Dead Reckoning is really funny. This movie is funny. Not funny at all. And there is like a complete lack of space for that relationship between the two of them to develop because it's rushing through so much plot.
Yeah, because you call Dead Reckoning Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and this is not that at all. Like, I don't know what order this happens in, but basically Luther gets killed. There's a situation where Gabriel traps Luther in this, like, well, to be fair, it's a dungeon that Luther has put himself in.
Yeah.
Is this the same place that Alec Baldwin gets killed in Fallout? Might be. The dungeons of London.
No, that's in Paris, isn't it?
I think that's in London.
They moved to London.
I worry we'll spend a lot of this episode just disagreeing on details, so I'm just going to I'm just going to accept whatever you think.
No,
is right.
I like the recurring motif of just little dungeons,
tunnels and dungeons. Yeah,
it's a good hideout place.
Yeah, so Gabriel is basically like, I'm about to blow up these dungeons, and Luther is like locked inside, and Luther is like,
this is where he steals the little
the little
USB
flash drive, and Luther's like, I can only save London if I die in the dungeon, and Ethan's like, all right, Luther, sorry then, goodbye, I love you, and runs away.
Yeah, there's a,
and it's a very sad death
just
scene
in a
for
technical
Luther.
point here, because this pops up about 3 times. There are multiple nuclear bombs in this.
Oh, I know, it's so
and
confusing.
the way a nuclear bomb works is you ignite a conventional bomb.
Yes.
And the conventional bomb makes the uranium go critical, and then the nuclear stuff happens.
Yeah.
So
if you take the stuff out of the nuclear bomb, it'll create local destruction, but it will avoid the main thing.
Yeah, the nuclear reaction doesn't happen, but the regular bomb goes off, which kills maybe people within 50 meters.
It's sort of a visualization of the central theme of the franchise being Ethan's issue with balancing the lives of the few versus the lives of the many, where multiple times in this film someone is faced with, I can dismantle a nuclear bomb
and kill myself,
but kill myself. So this happens a couple times.
Yeah.
So first time happens is with Luther. So Luther is killed, and that's very sad, but also the least surprising thing ever, because every single image of Luther in the marketing was in the same room wearing the same outfit. So unfortunately,
he's in scrubs and sitting beside a bed with an IV drip.
It's really weird. It's really strange, and there's definitely been stuff cut out there. But
100%.
he seems to just be giving himself over to his work, hiding out in the dungeon, like surviving on a drip for nutrition. It's weird.
We don't really know.
But the fact that there was not a single image of Luther in the marketing where he was wearing outdoor clothes or a hat suggested to me that he was going to be in the seats. So R.I.P. Luther. We love you. We love Ving Rhames.
Somewhere around here, Pom Clemente is broken out of prison by...
It happens very early on, yeah.
Is that before the credits?
I think it's before the credits.
That's
an okay, fine.
There's
a mask reveal.
It's the one mask reveal.
It's the one mask reveal, and because this movie is so lacking in fun and silliness, they can't do another mask reveal after that. No. It's such a waste.
This is a really low energy fight scene. They've done a prison thing in Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, so it's just repeating itself in a lot of ways. Hunt then surrenders himself to President Angela Bassett, and he gets brought in to face all of the sort of generals and secretaries and whatnot.
Explain what's happening.
And explain what's going on. And Angela Bassett is more open to his ideas than the rest of them. You've got on her team some people who were in the last movie. So you've got Janet McTeer is the Secretary of State, and you've got Charles Parnell as the DNI and the head of the NRO, but then joining them, Nick Offerman plays the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Holt McElhaney plays the Secretary of Defense. So Holt McElhaney, I guess, is the replacement for your man, Cary Elwes, who gets killed in the last one, because he's the Secretary of Defense.
Sure.
Rob Delaney is gone. I don't know what Rob Delaney's job was in the last movie. I missed Rob Delaney in this. I don't understand why he's not there. He apparently was just the head of the NSA, maybe in the last one or something. The head of JSOC. I'm sad.
I
he's
think
not
Jenna
in
McTeer
this.
wasn't in the.
No, she wasn't in
Yeah,
directing.
so maybe she took. Rob
Maybe.
Delaney's
I'm
job.
just sad Rob Delaney wasn't here. I
sure.
think he added something. But I honestly think that they didn't put Rob Delaney in this because he's too fun and silly to be in a movie this fucking dour and serious. But anyway, Angela Bassett basically decides to let Ethan go and try and save the world. This is where
he presents
drops,
this plan where he basically goes on a one-man mission to the bottom of the ocean to rescue something.
He drops his big trailer line,
went to the-
I need you to trust me one last time. And then he gets flown out in a helicopter to a aircraft carrier where he meets Hannah Waddingham, and she's like, okay, I'm going to help you with your plan. This is when the movie switches to me into boring mode. Now, I have heard a lot of people online complaining about the first hour. We're like an hour in at this
No,
point.
I disagree with you a little bit. On this.
I think, have opposite opinions where I think the first hour is fine because at least it keeps hopping around new locations and there's a couple of different scenes.
But I find that hopping boring and also
It's a
poorly
mess.
paced.
It's a mess and it's very poorly paced.
Like the cut to the embassy scene at the beginning, it's like they're sitting in a car and then they're in an embassy. I'm like,
it's
wait,
it's
what?
really badly edited, and it's also it's a failure of the film that we're sitting here and we can't remember whether the Clementiev prison breakout happens before or after the credits.
Yeah.
I mean that's ridiculous.
Like
we saw it last night.
knowing the way these things are made, that could have been after the credits or before the credits.
Knowing
depending
the
on
way
how-
these were made, any scene in this movie could have probably been in the last movie and moved into this. That's the problem here as well.
Yeah.
It's the whole production of these two Reckoning films has been so messy that I can't for a second believe that anything here is intentional and not just a happy accident. And in this movie, I would say an unhappy accident, you know? Now, we're going to get hundreds of hours of Christopher McQuarrie interviews where he tries to make it sound like he had this under control. And I can't wait to hear him try.
Do you think that'll happen or he'll just keep quiet?
He's doing the interviews.
he's
He's
doing the
recording the
interviews.
interviews with
Okay.
Chris Hewitt from Empire already,
Yeah.
and he's going to spend 12 hours talking about this movie. Now, he will probably focus more on the action, but there's not a lot of action to talk about. So
No,
anyway,
but he loves talking about his
he loves talking about his process.
his plot. No, his plot.
His
establishment, his
action
reasoning.
first, story second way of making movies.
I guess so, but he's very into establishing motives and stuff. He's not
sure,
someone who
yeah.
will completely disregard plot for the
No,
sake
not
of
at all.
actual. He's too into the plot,
Yes.
which maybe is the problem here.
But the problem as well is that the movies reverse engineer the plot from the action, and this movie fails at doing that in a smooth and functional
But
way.
there's not that much action in this. It's about
No,
three sequences.
There's 3 action sequences,
Yeah.
and there's normally about 7. So it's really strange how much this plot feels forced to facilitate the action. And I think part of that is that it is a direct sequel to another movie. It's the first time they've done this. All the other ones stand on their own far more than this does. Rogue Nation does not need the events of Ghost Protocol to set up everything it's doing.
Fallout needs-
a little bit, but really just outside of that. I mean,
but
Fallout,
you can gather the entire context of Fallout immediately.
but
without
Fallout
seeing
doesn't even
Rogue
have
Nation.
Jeremy Renner in it. Like Fallout is pulling a lot of new elements
Yeah,
more
very
than
much so.
it has Sean Harris, fine.
Yeah.
But it's bringing in Cavill and it's bringing in Angela Bassett and it's bringing in all these new elements.
And Sean Harris is pretty clear what he does. Like,
Exactly.
he doesn't even do it in the second
Whereas
one.
this
apart from
movie
just
is
act-
this
figure
movie is
out-
incomprehensible if you haven't seen Dead Reckoning Part 1. Despite its 25 minutes of recap at the start where they're showing you flashing images we haven't mentioned. It also turns out that the entity is Ethan's fault because it's the rabbit's foot that caused it to
From the
exist
third
from the
film.
third movie. Stupid.
which they never ever explain what it is. in
Oh,
the
and then
third film.
our other stupid reveal. Shea Wiggum says, my real name actually isn't
Briggs.
Briggs.
It's Jim Phelps.
My name is Jim Phelps Jr. and my dad was ambassador to Hollywood for the Trump administration, John Voight. And you're just like, well, okay.
Sure.
I guess they'll do something with that later in the movie. Never comes up again. Never comes up again. All it does is facilitate a situation where you're like, okay, I get why Shea Wiggum has beef with Ethan, and then at the end, him and Ethan have like a little hug when Ethan saves the world.
They did a fine job in Dead Reckoning
of making him into an interesting guy.
Yeah, because they were just like, okay, Shea Wiggum is just a guy who follows rules, and
Yeah.
he's annoyed.
And he has
Ethan
watched
doesn't
all the
follow
movies,
rules. Yeah.
and he doesn't like that Ethan does things his own way. And he
Yeah.
actually has a pretty funny line at the start of this movie where he says something along the lines of, I just don't like that he doesn't follow orders. And I was like, that's all you need to know. That
Yeah.
character
That's
is
it.
fine on
That
those
is
terms.
defined.
He does not need to be tied into the other movies. I mean, that is such Star Wars bullshit. That is Palpatine's granddaughter, Glup Shido, to the max. Of this perfectly fine functional character is a relative of a character from 6 movies ago. It's stupid and bad, and a really bad decision. I think.
I was
me
really
off.
put off at the beginning at how much flashback content there
Oh
was.
my god, it's extraordinary. I know it's really, really bad. Then we have
But
an hour
they're-
of.
They were flashing back to the end of Dead Reckoning, and I'm like,
I know you should have watched that before.
sorry,
you
I
went
was
to
so
this.
pissed off at the shot of Pom Clementieff's scarred stomach.
Yes, it cuts from her scar to what happened to her in the last movie.
Yeah,
back to the scar again. Really bad.
Really bad.
Just they're clearly somebody who wasn't Macquarie Cruz or Eddie Hamilton went into that editing suite and supervised the first 25 minutes, 40 minutes of the movie and said, no, a stupid person wouldn't get that. No, a person who didn't watch the last movie wouldn't get that. Because I guarantee that is either the result of either test screenings or a studio executive or both. Somebody went in and forced them to put in all of these little moments of like, you have to explain it. And they went completely overboard.
Yeah, the problem is you have 17 fucking characters, and all 17 of them need to have some motive.
Yeah.
And all of them, their motive is defined in the previous film, which
or
they've decided not
maybe
to
not even the previous film. Maybe the film that came out in
maybe the film that came out in
1996.
1996. Like, all Pom Clementief does in this is say, I want to kill
All
Gabriel.
she says. She has 3 lines of dialogue in
Yeah.
English, 7 lines of dialogue in French,
Yeah.
and they all are either just I kill people, I want to kill him, can we kill him?
Yeah.
And she could have been such an interesting character.
Oh, yeah.
Or don't make her that type of character at all. Just make her like a cartoon, cool looking villain lady who is just kind of off in the distance doing stuff with her sword and her gun.
She got katana.
She got katanaed, yeah. So what happens now is that Ethan splits off from the rest of the team. The rest of the team go to a little house on the ice where they run into everybody's favorite character. Yes, it's Ralph Saxon as William Dunlow from the first movie, now married to a Inuit fisherman lady, played by Lucy Tuller-Garjuk, and they are more new characters we didn't need.
Yeah.
And they have to help Grace and Benji and Paris and Greg Tarzan Davis's character, who is also now on the team, who split off from Shea Wiggum, Theo Degas, have to help them, while Ethan is off on the aircraft carrier with Hannah Waddingham. He very quickly gets from the aircraft character into the water. I did really enjoy the 2-minute scene of him on a little fighter jet type thing. It's like better Top Gun Maverick, where he's like on a little fighter jet or a military helicopter thing, and they're like, the Russians are right over there. We're not fucking going
like,
over there.
oh, shit, we
and
gotta
he's like, just give me 5 minutes. And they're like, we will give you 1 minute.
Yeah.
And then he basically just jumps out the back into the water. That was
Sorry,
really fun.
the shot in the water is very good.
Incredible, yeah.
It's really cool.
Like, we need to say, we're being so negative that every 10 or 15 minutes, pretty much, there's like a shot or a moment or a sequence that made me gasp. Like, it is delivering a certain proportion of the shocking action, amazing moments you want, but nowhere near the amount you got in the last 3 movies, unfortunately.
No, it's a real exercise in like how much can be compensated. Like,
like
it's
can
truly
you be
one of the
this
most volatile
Yeah,
films
can you be
can
this
watch.
fucking slow and dense with your storytelling and keep me interested with moments of action, you know? So then Ethan basically gets to a submarine.
Okay.
And the submarine is captained by Tremel Tillmans, Mr.
Yes.
Milchek from Succession. And he's having Severance. And he's having great fun. And he is basically talking in this very Mr. Milchek way. But he goes, now, mister, I don't know what your plan is, but you're not going to get us all killed, mister. And he keeps calling Ethan mister. And I thought he was having a great time.
But then
I
he
really
goes
enjoyed
like,
that.
they're right beside like the number one nuclear submarine of the Russian army, and he's like, if you want to poke the bear, you came to the right man.
Yes,
And, like, I thought
he's
that
good
was
fun.
very good.
But the movie is not satisfied with giving us a good character and letting him command the scene. It goes, no. Sorry. We actually have 3 other characters now that we have to introduce in this scene.
Yeah.
So welcome to the movie, Katie O'Brien, Stephen O'Young, and Tommy Earl Jenkins. No. Who's the guy with the beard and the red hair? I don't care.
Not Wyatt Russell.
3 new guys are 2 good new guys and a girl are introduced as Tramel Tillmans' subordinates, who all have to be involved in Ethan's plan as well. Why? Why not just let Ethan and Tillmans do the plot?
Yeah.
You do not need to add 3 more characters. It's like
this is like if Cruz showed up to Kirby's house
so
in Fallout
weird.
and 3 new goons were there.
It's so weird. It's like, are they trying to sell action figures or like fill out a Top Trump set? I don't know why you need to put this many characters in your movie. It is so bloated already.
Is there a 5-hour version of this? Like,
I'm sure there's a 5-hour version. I'm sure there is. But like you do think at a certain point, thank God that Ilsa and Luther are off the table, because they would be so disserviced if they were still in the mix here. There would be no room for them. Like, Ilsa has to be gone. There couldn't be room. There couldn't possibly be room for her.
No.
And Vanessa Kirby is gone. R.I.P. to all of them. Anyway,
they were also two characters that were kind of pretty grounded in reality, and this like takes a complete turn for sci-fi.
complete turn. Yeah, I know. Like Ilsa is better off not being in this movie, and I think Ilsa not being in this movie is good for Ilsa's legacy because this movie isn't that great, and I think that we have now got 3 great Ilsa movies, and this movie doesn't need to be a problem. Whereas I think Grace, as good as she is in Dead Reckoning, that character is really let down by this movie, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, because unfortunately her backstory is that she is a professional pickpocket.
Yes. And this movie is operating on this like nuclear apocalyptic level of action where there's nothing a pickpocket can really do.
No.
So she just ends up being kind of Benji's female counterpart, and the two of them are just kind of bouncing back and forth doing things together. But I actually don't think that her and Peg have particularly good chemistry. Maybe they're too similar as actors, but I wasn't interested in her on that team with Peg and Paris and Degas. Nothing going on there. Yeah. Cruz basically gets off a submarine and goes down diving looking for the submarine. There is a 20-minute, I'm going to guess 20 minutes. It could be like 12 minutes, but it felt a lot longer.
No, it's about that because
silent
they give
diving scene.
On multiple occasions, they give an indication of how long next.
Oh yeah, they keep giving us little clocks. Like,
they keep giving us little clocks.
So there's
before he dives, they're like, okay, you have like 5 minutes to get down, 10 minutes to do the thing, and 5 minutes to get up.
Yeah, and then you're gonna have to spend like a week in a decompression chamber, and they're like, not so. We have a little portable inflatable one, and Cruz like really stilted but funny dialogue where Cruz says to Tillmans, "Your decompression chamber was never part of the plan," which is like. That's just bad screenwriting. But anyway, I did laugh.
I kind of like
Ethan goes diving for 20 minutes and there's not a single bit of dialogue and the score isn't good enough and the sound design isn't good enough to keep me interested. I was absolutely bored senseless during this scene. I couldn't follow the northwest, south, and east geography of the underwater space. So I didn't really understand what direction he was meant to be going and what direction he wasn't meant to be going. Which meant that when things were, quote, going wrong for him, I didn't really understand why.
No,
and I thought this was badly directed and the worst action, if you can call it action, the worst action scene
one of the
since the third movie.
No, I didn't dislike it as much as you did. I was able to follow it. I had a better sense of kind of the geography of it. And I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun to have a kind of reserved, silent action sequence.
Cool in theory, but it's too slow. And if you're comparing it to the diving scene in Rogue Nation, which moves so quickly and the water is literally rushing towards him, this is so mundane. You're like, where's the there needs to be a ticking clock on the fucking screen because I'm not feeling the sense of the ticking clock here.
I was.
The only bit I liked was when he comes across the bodies of the dead Russian submarine guys that we see at the start of the last movie, which apparently happened 13 years ago. And I thought that was spooky.
I'm not
cool.
super into the water scene in Rogue Nation. I like the setup.
I like
the
it
idea.
It moves really fast.
It moves really fast. It doesn't linger too long. But as a kind of a visual on-screen cool stunt, it is a bit lost.
I just thought the sense of space here was really poorly defined. I feel this way with like Gravity as well, and movies set in space. When
it was a bit Gravity.
When you're in a zero gravity space, you really have to show me where the walls are of the where the boundaries are. And this movie did not establish boundaries at all. This scene, sorry.
This really does lose. All the scenes in this completely lose the location.
Oh, absolutely. Really, really poor sense of space.
Like the most incredible thing about Fallout is how they're even in Paris and
yes.
just in very identifiable locations going through traffic. You need a reference point.
Even the London stuff is poorly defined. I mean, the scene of him running across bridges in London to save Luther is one of the least exciting running scenes in the series, even though the stakes are unbelievably high for the audience. He's saving one of our favorite characters, and it's still not that exciting because you can't tell where he's going from, where he's going to. I think the geography in the South Africa stuff at the end is not that great either.
No.
They're just flying around kind of random mountains and stuff. And you're like, the helicopter scene in Fallout, which this is clearly modeled after, has much clearer geography. Anyway, he goes diving for a while. We have our big submarine that apparently was the entire problem with this production, that they basically held the studio hostage to rent a submarine.
Yeah.
I don't think it was worth it. You could have CGI'd the submarine.
No, not even CGI'd, but I don't know why that wasn't just a set you built like the hallway in Inception. Because that's kind of all that's happening.
I just don't think the movie was worth, delaying a year over this submarine. Like, it's not like... Because I remember at the time we were like, it's worth it, man. The submarine's going to be class. And I just don't think the submarine in this
No, I was never certain that the submarine thing was going to work because it's underwater.
Yeah.
And it's only... it's indistinguishable from maybe a CGI submarine.
Just like not the hill I would have died on with this movie. So that gets resolved basically, and he gets back up. And now I really liked how the diving scene ended. It ends with a sort of hallucinatory image of Haley Atwell Grace coming down and kissing him underwater, which then cuts to a real scene of like a really romantic, like 1 minute montage of her like bringing him back to life in the decompression chamber. That was like actually incredibly romantic and sensual, and I thought was like maybe the most fucking human piece of filmmaking in this.
100%.
Where they're kind of like embracing, and there's a bit of kissing, and she's stroking his hair, and she's lying down beside him, and I was like, why couldn't there have been like 20 minutes of Ethan and Grace romance
I
in this
think
film?
what happens
it's so
here
good.
is like this, because the entire film is a clock.
Yeah.
The fact that he keeps kind of falling back asleep and waking back up,
Yes.
you have no sense of how much time is passing. It's like they've
Is
kind
there
of
a film we talked about on this podcast recently? Oh, Night and Day does the same shit. Night and Day is a movie where Cameron Diaz keeps getting drugged by Cruz.
Yeah.
And when she wakes up from being drugged, they're in a new location. And that movie just goes from one location to the next without any movement or travel or plane or anything, because he'll just be like, I'm sorry, I've had to drug you again for your own safety. And then she'll wake up in a bed somewhere and he'll be like, now we're in Seville. And that is the stupidest way of moving a plot forward. This movie's not quite as bad.
But sorry, the sequence, the
continue.
point I was making here is that it completely moves away from the urgency of the clock and somehow makes the relationship feel more important than the fact that the world is going to get nuked.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why I think it was like weirdly affecting.
Yes, exactly.
It was like, all right, it was kind of a weird acceptance of...
That's what I want. In an apocalyptic film, I want there to be a prioritization of romance and of loving relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
And this movie only has it for about a minute and then it moves on again.
Yeah.
Worth saying as well, from the very beginning of the film, there is like Ethan climbs into the entity phone, the entity FaceTime machine, where he's basically locked into a conversation with the entity. And for the love of God, the entity literally goes, hello, I am the entity. And you're like, no, the entity didn't need to have a voice.
Yeah.
Ethan is then shown several minutes of footage of nukes taking off and firing into different world cities. This put me in a very, very negative headspace. This is Oppenheimer bullshit. The Mission Impossible movies are not meant to really present you with this grim a military, destructive
but it's the
situation.
only way you can go to keep elevating the stakes.
It's the only way you can elevate the stakes. But like Fallout has nuclear stakes, but it doesn't show them to... I mean, the title Fallout implies nuclear stakes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show you these really nasty, scary nuclear explosions straight out of Oppenheimer that just made me feel really like, oh, this is just really dark now.
I mean, it does, but
I don't want to think about the end of the
fair,
world.
it does in the opening sequence before the walls come down, where they're showing...
Oh, yeah, it does, but it pulls the rug out straight away.
The rug out
this
straight
movie
away.
keeps those stakes up for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Around the point in the movie we're at now is when Angela Bassett enters her war room with the gang, with the whole
Now, I
McElhaney.
like this.
And this is a complete ripoff of one of our favorite films, Sidney Lumet's Failsafe.
Yeah.
Which is basically the American president is faced with this crazy nuclear situation that is basically out of any human being's control.
Yeah.
Because in this movie, the entity has taken over all the world's nukes apart from America. In Failsafe, it's that a nuke has been fired by mistake and no one can withdraw the nuke.
Yeah.
So in both of these movies,
it was a
technical
electrical
difficulty.
error or
So in
whatever.
both of these films, the nuking has been taken out of people's hands and everyone feels bad.
Yeah.
So there is a moment where someone suggests to Janet McTeer, I think suggests we would have to probably destroy an American city if we destroy all these other cities as a sort of apology.
Yes, see,
and
what
acceptance
happens
of guilt.
is all the 8 countries, eventually 7 of the other 7 nuclear states
are all taken over by the entity.
taken over by the entity.
So America is in this position of chicken where either America nukes all the other nuclear bases, or everywhere's
risk
entity
theirs gets taken over.
entity just suicides the planet.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch a movie with these fucking ideas in it. This is so depressing. Like, Failsafe is good because it's nice and short and lean and tense. It doesn't have these long action scenes of Tom Cruise faffing about with diving and planes.
It's also
I can't get excited at watching action scenes when the stakes are this miserable.
It's also localized to just like one bomb, seemingly.
Yeah.
and kind of everything else is kind of implied or just I
exactly.
think this is showing you.
Whereas this movie is
explicitly
just like everywhere is going to be
the world
blown
will go
up.
on fire.
It's so depressing, and the entity, meanwhile, when the world goes on fire, is going to bury itself in this doomsday vault in South Africa, which brings the action to South Africa. So basically, the final 45-50 minutes of the movie takes place with Ethan and the team in South Africa, while in and around this doomsday vault, while Angela Bassett is back in the war room, basically deciding whether to nuke the whole world or not. And we do get to cut back and forth between these two settings, and this is when the film probably comes alive the most, because at least you're presenting us with two pretty compelling scenarios. There is like 15 minutes that's just set in a cave in South Africa with all of our characters.
with two fucking double crosses.
Two double crosses. Everyone's in the scene apart from Angela Bassett's gang.
Yeah.
You have basically Ethan and his team, Shea Wiggum, Henry Czerny, and Gabriel's gang, and they're all in the scene together. And you basically have Henry Czerny keeps everyone trapped, but then Gabriel is actually double crossing him.
So Tom Cruise and Ethan and his gang get ambushed by Gabriel and his gang.
Yeah.
Who proceed to get ambushed by Shea Wiggum and his gang.
Yeah.
Who proceed to get re-ambushed by Gabriel and his gang.
Gabriel runs away, and Gabriel has now got this like drive with the entity on it,
which
and the poison pill.
Ethan recovered from the submarine. That's why he was down there.
Gabriel basically has everything now.
He does, but that was the plan.
That was the plan. So Ethan's okay with that.
Now, I probably should try and explain. No, I was thinking about this today. It's completely lost me what Gabriel's motive is anymore.
Gabriel is a hardcore entity believer.
But the entity kicked him out in favor of Ethan earlier in the film, where he's like, Gabriel's done. I want you to do this thing.
And Gabriel will not survive if the entity blows up the world. You get the sense because they do introduce the idea that the entity has started a cult. And the other people in the entity's cult presumably are happy to die in service of the entity. Well, they also probably don't know the plan.
There's kind of like biblical plague imagery for a couple of seconds.
Gabriel knows, but does Gabriel really know the plan? Does Gabriel think that he's going to survive?
Yes, I think he wants to control it.
He wants to control the entity.
Yeah, but it's just getting out of his grasp.
Yeah, it's weird. And Gabriel's having too much fun at the end of the movie as well. Gabriel is turned into a dastardly and muttly wacky racist character in the final section of the movie, where he is giggling and laughing and gurning the entire time, which probably isn't appropriate considering the situation he's in.
It's not appropriate given the film.
Given the film, but it is fun. At least it makes the last action scene.
No, if you strip this film back to Czerny, brought back Cary Elwes, and had Gabriel,
I know.
This would be a bit more coherent.
A bit more coherent, yeah.
We have the poison pill. We have the hard drive.
I don't want to
has
figure it
the
out.
entity on it.
And the key is no longer relevant, right? We're done with the key.
Key is done.
Yeah, we're now dealing with a hard drive and the poison pill, and they need to be slotted into each other. There is, however, another hard drive, which is an 8-sided cubic drive that has to
five-dimensional
memory with thousands of terabytes that has to be plugged in within 100 milliseconds of a moment in order to capture the entity.
It has to be plugged in and removed within 100 milliseconds of the flash drive being plugged into the
in a completely different location.
Yeah,
because if you put it in too fast, the entity won't be trapped on it.
Yeah.
But if you put it in too late, the entity will activate all the nukes.
It'll take control.
So you have 100 milliseconds to do it.
Yeah.
Best moment of the movie is Haley Atwell plugging it in at the right moment. The score cuts out. She goes, and the entire audience in our room went, it was pretty great.
Yeah. They basically have to trap it in this little cube.
Yeah.
But
it's fucking stupid. Anyway,
there's a 100 millisecond period when the entity doesn't realize it's in the cube.
It's stupid. The important thing is we get the action scene with the planes, which absolutely is amazing. It's incredible. There's stuff in it that you've seen in the trailers. There's stuff in it that you haven't seen in the trailers. Gabriel gets killed halfway through the scene, and Ethan goes from the yellow plane to the red plane. Has to take control of the red plane. He is like hanging off the side of the plane. Then the plane fucking crashes and he's parachuting. Then his parachute catches on fire. Just unbelievable stuff. There is a moment where you think he's done, he's dead, and then it turns out there's another parachute, and he basically, like, the parachute you see rising up from behind a hill, and Ethan has survived.
Oh, there's some insane shots of him standing between the two wings of the airplane, and the plane flips up and down, so he's like not holding on to anything. He's just floating in midair between the airplanes.
No, it is one of the best sequences in this franchise, best action sequences I've ever seen. Buster Keaton would be proud. Unbelievable stuff.
Again,
I wish the rest of the movie was like
the
this,
only
it's great.
Issue I have with this is the same issue I had with the helicopters. Is once you're in the sky, you don't have much reference to
what's going on down below.
What's going on?
I know it's tough.
Which is why I still think my favorite sequence in all of these films is probably like the Paris chase extraction scene.
Paris chase extraction scene is great, but like the Halo jump.
Sorry,
the Halo jump it has functional geography because you can see the Paris.
Yes,
coming towards you.
The ground.
There's a target.
You're on the way to the ground.
That's fantastic. Anyway, we could do a whole episode about the best action
Yeah,
scenes.
like whereas the
We'll rank the
helicopter
movies at the
and the airplane sequences are both
Yeah.
kind of rushing to get far enough away from a bomb that's about to go off,
know,
but you know
yeah.
the bomb's not going to go off because it's a Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah. Anyway, he basically lands safely. The movie's over. Henry Turney and Shea Wiggum rock up in a car, and they're basically like, well done, Ethan. And then we basically get to hear Luther's beautiful message that he's recorded for Ethan before he dies, where he's like, "You were my friend, and I trust you, and you were great at your job." And you're like, "Oh, it's beautiful."
I knew you could do it.
Yeah,
brother.
yeah. And then we cut to London, and they're back in London. They're always fucking in London because that's where Tom Cruise lives with his boyfriend, Christopher McQuarrie. And they basically, nothing happens there. Ethan, Paris, Degas, Grace and Benji are all there in London. Oh, also, sorry, Paris has to do surgery on Benji down in the cave.
This is quite good.
That's kind of good,
It
yeah.
is quite good.
And Benji's like, my lungs are basically collapsing. You need to puncture a hole in my lung with
Yeah.
a fucking scissors, like, and that's pretty good, pretty grisly, like. That's it. That's the movie, I guess.
This is like it's a similar ending to a lot of the other ones. It
Very
does
similar,
the
yeah.
Ghost Protocol. We all hang out and
Yeah.
smile at each other.
Yeah. No, a lot of these movies have this ending.
This is the worst.
It's the worst. I wish that it would end. First of all, I would have been perfectly fine with Ethan being killed, or like at least the illusion that Ethan was dead.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fake out at the end where Shea Wiggum goes up, points a gun
Yeah.
at him as if he's like, "All right, you're done here now.
Yeah,
We don't
I
need you
think
anymore."
that the killing of Bond at the end of No Time to Die is a brave decision that I think these movies should have taken a lesson from. I think that No Time to Die has a far more satisfying ending than this movie. I mean, the ending of No Time to Die is so good because Bond dies, and then you get to see Léa Seydoux and the son or
Yeah.
the daughter,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my god, that's his daughter. And like, you could have done something like that with Haley Atwell here. I just feel like they missed that moving human ending that they could have gotten. And the marketing was promising us, you know, the death of Ethan Hunt was heavily implied. So they just won't commit, and it's just
they
a pity,
won't.
like-
But I think there's an issue there where I think for me as an audience member, I am as invested in Michelle Monaghan and Rebecca Ferguson
Yes.
as I am in Haley Atwell.
Of course, I
having
love them
her
all
be the-
equally.
So
yeah.
having her be the one to be like, I'm the one you're going to cut to
Yes,
when he dies.
I know. It's
You
a lot
can't
to
do
put
it.
on her shoulders. Yeah.
It's a lot to put on her
I also
shoulders.
said to you, they made her look incredibly similar to Michelle Monaghan in the final scene in a way that I feel is kind of deliberate.
A little bit.
She really looks like her. Her hair is like done the exact same way as Monaghan in these movies. Who's the best performance in this film? Is it... Okay, here are my contenders.
No, okay.
Tom Cruise is a contender.
He's fine.
Tramell Tillman.
He's great.
I'm going to wildcard Kate. I'm throwing Katie O'Brien in here, who I enjoyed.
She's got presence when she shows up.
She's
You're
got
like, "Oh,
presence,
okay."
and you're like, you have a different vibe to everyone else in this movie.
Like, they had her instead of Haley.
Yeah,
No,
maybe.
maybe.
I don't know. She's not playing a heterosexual
No,
love
she's
interest for
not.
Ethan in this. Nick Offerman, contender.
Does what he can.
I'm gonna throw Bassett in here, and then I think Journey, Pegg, Rames, and Atwell are not eligible. There's not enough for any of them to do. Henry Journey is really not given enough to do in this movie. I'd say the contenders for best performance are those names I've just read.
I
Bassett's
think
not as good as she is in Fallout. I think she's like not able for some of this material, and she's a great actress, but like it's too stupid for her to deliver. And I've seen this lady in hundreds of episodes of 911.
I
but
know.
like she can't do some of this stupid plot stuff. Anyway,
No, but I think
is Tramell Tillman or Nick Offerman the best performance in the movie?
I like Mr. Dunlow. What's his name? Rob.
Oh, you like him? He is good. To be fair, it's stupid that he's in the movie, but he does his best. Rolf Saxon.
Yeah.
He does his best, and I think when him and his wife offer to sacrifice themselves, that's a nice moment.
I don't think they needed to tag along for the rest
No,
of the
they
film.
didn't need to be in the rest of the film.
No. But he showed up and I was like, oh, this seems like a real actor who's kind
Yes.
of doing
I
a
agree.
serious good performance.
Yeah, he gives the same vibe in this that like Journey and Cary Elwes did in the last one, where you're
Little
like,
bit, yeah.
who's this guy?
He also like looks a lot cooler than he did 30 years
yeah,
ago.
exactly.
Which
With
is
the beard
it's
is
a good bit.
class. Yeah, I think Nick Offerman's moment where he like takes the gun outside the Situation Room is pretty cool because you're like, he's going to do some crazy shit. And then he ultimately doesn't do any crazy shit. But I was interested in what Nick Offerman was up to.
I think that was silly that they let a non-speaking character pull the gun.
Exactly.
Like,
it should have been one of them.
Why was not Chris Parnell flipping or someone?
Yes.
Is it Chris Parnell?
Yeah, okay, Charles Parnell.
Charles Parnell.
Chris Parnell
Sorry.
will be great in this. No, exactly. It should be Holt McElhaney, who has bad guy vibes.
He does.
And has literally just been in the amateur playing a bad guy version of this character. Yeah, that's it. There's no one in this movie is getting a Best Supporting Actor Golden Boy nomination, which is devastating because the last movie we couldn't decide who to nominate. I think the score, which is by these like guys who were assistant composers on the last movie, Max Aruj and Alfie Godfrey, I think the score is quite poor.
Yeah.
It uses a lot of the Balf stuff from the last two movies, but then it doesn't add anything new. And when they're not using those existing themes, I think it doesn't capture attention at all. Fraser Taggart shot this movie, shot the last one as well. The action looks great, but I don't think there's any particularly striking imagery otherwise. I think a lot of the Situation Room stuff looks quite flat.
It's lost any of its kind of urban appeal.
Yes, the city stuff is really boring. Like London,
the worst
stuff
London's looked
really bad.
Like compared to the first half hour of Rogue Nation and the end of Rogue Nation,
Yeah.
how London is shot is just not even on the same level.
Yeah. Not really much else to say about this. I'm going to do my ranking of the Mission Impossible movies right now from bottom to top.
Yeah,
and then
go
you
ahead.
can do yours, and I'd say we're going to be very similar. In 8th place, I've got Mission Impossible 2. Not much to say about it. I can barely make it through it, to be honest. Like, it's not my kind of movie.
It's fine. It's
computers
of its time.
It's computers are cool bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, in 7th place, I got Mission Impossible 1996. I think we're just a little bit too young for this. This is not my Mission Impossible movie. I don't like these types of espionage films as much as I like.
Yeah, it's not what you want to get out of it. Like
Those-
it's good in a different way.
It's fine. If it was Tom Cruise is in a movie called The Code,
Yeah.
from 1986, you'd watch it once and you'd be like, yeah, 3-star film. You know,
Yeah, pretty
it's
good.
fine. In 6th place, Mission Impossible 3. Just doesn't do much for me. It features two great actors I love,
When did you watch it last?
Hoffman and Crudup. I watched it probably about 3 years ago. I'd say before Dead Reckoning I watched it.
The acting performances are better than this. Do you think?
Yeah, well, by Monaghan and Hoffman specifically, sure.
Yeah.
I think that it features two of my favorite actors, and that really helps. Crudup and Hoffman. I think that it is very ugly. I think it has ugly action, ugly music. I think that Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Maggie Q are not serious actors. I can't take them seriously. Kerry Russell's stuff doesn't interest me. Like, it just, as people say, it looks and sounds like an episode of J.J. Abrams' show Alias, and I can't really get over that. And I don't think it's a particularly exciting movie. Maybe I'd feel differently if I saw it in 2006. At number 5, Final Reckoning. Easy 5th place for me. You know, there's a world where it could be my number 6, but I'm putting it at 5 because there are moments in this film that are as good as stuff in Fallout. Moments.
Yeah.
At number 4, I have Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I think is controversial and this could change. But I've just developed this sense that, like, I would happily sit down and watch Dead Reckoning basically any minute of any day. I find that movie so rewatchable. I love the way it's structured. I love the way it's paced. Obviously, the Venice party scene sucks. But everything else is...
Everything they carried over from Dead Reckoning sucks into there.
Well, but like watching this movie, the new one, I'm just like, man, I wish I was watching Dead Reckoning right now. It's got all my favorite characters: Carrie Elwes, Shea Wiggum, Henry Zerning, Rebecca Ferguson, and Vanessa Kirby. So I really like Dead Reckoning. So that's my number 3. Ghost Protocol has incredibly high highs and then a lot of lull. My number 4, and then at number 2 I've got Rogue Nation, which has just grown in my estimation every time I watch it. I think Rogue Nation is almost perfect. I love it so much.
It's the complete opposite of this.
It's complete opposite of this. It moves unbelievably quickly. It fits in so much stuff, but it's not crowded. It very few characters in it. It really only has about 5 important characters.
It's got very good geography. It's got good settings. Is it the best looking one?
It might be the best looking one.
From a lighting,
yeah, I think it looks incredible. Beautiful colors, beautiful locations. Renner is used really well. Baldwin's used really well. They don't get in the way.
There's really good restraint at the end of it where they don't go for a huge set piece.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah, exactly. And it does multiple different types of Hitchcock homages. It does the plane stuff. It does the opera house stuff, and then the whole kind of final London section is very Hitchcocky as well. Love it.
Like I think it's a good example of like somebody running around in the dark can be almost as exciting as 2 airplanes.
Exactly,
going
if you
crazy.
do it right.
It's about the movement rather than the
Yes,
the medium or the
it's
vehicle.
choreographed so well.
Yeah.
And then number 1, obviously, Mission Impossible Fallout, which is one of my favorite films of all time. Right. Is your ranking different to mine? I feel like it'll be a little bit different.
No, I think it's the same.
You like 3 more than me, though.
I do.
Is 2 definitely your bottom?
It kind of has to be.
Yeah, I think it has to be.
No, I'm like, there's no version of the 2000 type shtick. Like, I think about certain moments, like, oh, maybe I would like that in a rewatch, but I've probably rewatched it like 3 times.
From 2 or 3?
From 2.
From 2, yeah.
I just remember there's so much shit with Brendan Gleeson and stuff
stupid,
stuff at the horse racing track that I'm just like,
it's also the least cool Cruise has ever been. I mean, I think Cruise is lame in that movie. Like,
yeah, it's a funny spin-off.
it is. It's a funny
It's like
twist on this
it's a funny,
franchise.
Oh,
yeah.
it was just this random dream sequence where Tom
Yes.
is a cool guy for a bit.
Now, would you put Ghost Protocol higher than Dead Reckoning?
I think Dead Reckoning has a little bit of a few of the issues that this one has.
A few, yeah.
In terms of, I was very, very invested in everyone that was in Fallout and Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol, and it just, Dead Reckoning introduces like a few too many elements.
Sure. Oh, it's nowhere near as tidy as Rogue Nation
No, it's
or Fallout.
not tidy.
But
It's
I think that it's very, very pleasurable, and that the new characters that are introduced are all a lot of fun.
But I don't really have an issue with like the introduction of Paula Patton and whoever the others are in
It's just kind of her and Renner. Yeah.
Again, 2 is fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. There's not those, like, none of those movies are overcrowded. The only ones that are overcrowded are 7 and 8, really.
7 and 8 are very overcrowded.
Yeah.
And
I think 3 is overcrowded.
Maybe, yeah.
Fucking Lawrence Fishburne's in there for no reason.
Oh, yeah.
He's just, him and Crudup are just doubling up, like, and Maggie Q and Kerry Russell, like, that movie is overcrowded. There are multiple people in that movie who are both fulfilling
like
the same role.
I think Crudup might be doing a Henry Cavill type thing in that.
He is, but like, then make him the second lead. Don't
Yeah.
put him in this random tertiary role where Lawrence Fishburne is still the IMF boss.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Anyway.
Well, that's it. That's Mission Impossible. That's the Mission Impossible franchise, folks. You might be hearing more Mission Impossible on your feed at some point in the near future, because you might be getting a 25 for 25 installment about a Christopher McQuarrie film.
I think ultimately I still gave this 4 stars on Letterboxd this morning.
Yeah, I'm on a 3 and a heart buzz.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if 2 weeks from now, I will be convinced to go back and see this a second time. I think there's a very good chance I will be.
I might enjoy it more the second time.
I had quite a strong disinterest in seeing Dead Reckoning a second time when we first saw it. Because
But I liked it more the second time.
I liked it.
So.
Yeah, I felt it was exhausting the first
Yeah.
time I saw it.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I was persuaded to go see it a second time. And then I liked it a lot more second time.
Because you're not overly analytical. You're not trying to think. You're not watching out for what's
we think
happening.
about these movies too much. We watch the trailer 100 times, and I spend a lot of time thinking
Like,
about
I
these
was
movies.
there time like
Yeah.
Is this where the credits coming?
Yeah,
Is this where the
exactly.
credits
No,
coming?
we're too interested in all that bullshit of like just pre-expectations. So I feel like the second time we're going to relax into the actual what the movie is. I do ultimately think this movie is really, really messy, and that's never really going to change for me.
No.
But I could see myself bumping it up to a 4-star maybe on second viewing. I did compare it to Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which is a better film, but I think it has a very similar structure in terms of we're going to just fuck off out in the ice for a while.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tension in that movie is very apocalyptic in a similar way. Much better film, but does have a lot in common. So if you like Pirates 3, you might like this.
Yeah, I think ultimately you could see the flaws of this coming from a mile away just based on knowing how Cruise and McQuarrie work.
Yeah.
And I think they've
The ball had to be
they've
dropped
managed-
eventually, yeah.
The ball had to drop eventually, and they were getting away with it.
Yeah.
And then their last
It's
the
such a
last
pity,
hurdle,
yeah.
they just
yeah.
kind of fell a
If
little bit.
you had trimmed down the last movie and just somehow found a way to get this South Africa section in there, and you make that sort of a 3-hour film that has all the stuff we like from Dead Reckoning plus the South Africa plane stuff, and you end the
You couldn't
franchise
have
there.
the plane and the train stuff.
You end the franchise there. I don't know. I'm just thinking of a world where this movie doesn't let down the franchise at the final hurdle.
It doesn't. Like, thankfully, it ends.
not
on
an
the-
awful
on the
film,
30
but-
It thankfully ends on 30 minutes of the best
True.
action.
Yeah,
ever
ending
put
on a
screen.
high is always a good thing.
Yeah.
which is what Ghost Protocol fails to do.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. That is our Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning episode. We hope all of you hunt heads have enjoyed listening to us discuss this franchise and this film. We're sorry that we couldn't be more positive, but, you know, there's lots to like in here.
Yeah, a journey that probably started in June 2018 when we sat in Supermax. And
July 2018, yeah.
July 2018. 7 years ago.
We'll play, for the old time's sake, we'll play you a little clip right now of us doing our immediate reaction podcast in 2018 to Fallout.
Yeah.
Shane and I just saw the greatest American film of all time, Mission Impossible Fallout. Hi Shane, how are you? Grand. Now, apologies for the background noise. But we had to record this immediately because it's a great day in human history, and we have to do this. God, the last time that I saw a film in the cinema and was like, this is one of the best films I've ever seen was Inception 2010, I'm pretty sure.
That was us in 2018 talking about Mission Impossible Fallout. As you can tell, we were...
Our voices have broken since.
Yeah,
probably.
as you could tell, we were in a very different mindset after seeing that film to where we are now. But,
we had much worse audio equipment.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't record in Supermax anymore. We're professionals now.
Yeah.
Tune in next week. We'll be joined by 4-time returning guest Brendan Fernando Kelly Palenque will be here to talk about Burlesque, starring Christina Aguilera and Cher. A completely different type of film. We like to shake things up. BoyPartyPod.com is your place for all of our episodes. You can follow Boy Party Pod on Blue Sky and Instagram. And we'll be back.
On the Entity.
And on the Entity, of course.
Yeah.
And thank you for tuning in. And yeah. Bye-bye. I can't remember what the last line in the movie is, so... Some bullshit. There's some interesting science. There's some interesting.
Are we still doing the episode?
We are.
Okay.
There's some interesting Scientology stuff in this movie as well, where you're like, what is Cruise trying to tell us here about trusting one person to do a job and putting your faith in a messianic figure? For
There's
example,
also acknowledgement of cults in this.
Yes, but I like the bit where Grace says, I would trust you specifically with the entity.
Yeah.
And he's like, absolutely not. You should not trust me specifically with the entity. I'd love to read into that and how that applies to Cruise's life philosophy.
I know, but the film also follows the plot of the Cruise and Macquarie probably went to the entire staff of that film and went, please trust me.
Yeah,
they went to the studio executives and were like,
I know.
give me one last one.
Nightmare. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Bye.